Thank you, Shilpa. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody who's joined in this morning. I say this because RISE is actually a global summit. At last count, we had more than 9,000 people registered on the platform and from more than 80 countries. So welcome to all of you who have joined in live today, as also those who will be watching this recording later on. We are here today. This is the fifth day of the RISE Summit. We've had an incredible 4 days, spanning the gamut of the Sustainable Development Goals on which RISE has been predicated over the last 11 years. This is the 12th edition that we have been hosting the RISE Summit, and it's really grown from strength to strength. It's amazing to see the kind of thought leaders and experts that have come and joined with RISE. And over the years, it's just increased in scope, in numbers, in just the impact. And RISE is an opportunity to network with kindred people, kindred organizations, and set up collaborations so that we all work together towards the Sustainable Development Goals. As Shilpa just pointed out, RISE stands for Responsible, Inclusive, Sustainable, Eco-Friendly. And each one of them, as you saw in the video, responsibility starts with me. Inclusivity or inclusion actually is when I talk about me and you. And when we go to the next level of sustainability, which is not possible unless we talk about us. When all of us are involved together, it's when sustainability comes into play. And finally, if our ecosystems, if we work to preserve our ecosystems, then we can preserve what is ours. And that is really what RISE is all about. So here we are on day 5 of the RISE Pico World Summit 2025, and we are in for a very, very interesting session. It is something which I think is so critical. We're talking about menstrual taboos and menstrual hygiene in Indian perspective, something which is so basic, which is so biological, which is so intrinsic and imperative to the perpetuation of the human race. Yet something that is actually fraught with so much of taboo, so much of secrecy, and that itself causes a lot of issues. And today, to actually discuss this in a deeper way and look at solutions and what's possible in this whole environment, we have an illustrious panel of experts who will be actually taking us in a roundtable. And it is my privilege and honor to introduce the moderator of this panel, who will then introduce the rest of the panel. We have with us Dr. Suman Bijlani. May we have the speaker highlight, please? I think it's only Shilpa who's being highlighted right now. Yeah, maybe have Dr. Suman and me on the... Yeah, can we spotlight Dr. Suman, please, and me as well? Okay, thank you. Okay, so Dr. Suman Bijlani is a gynecologist, a high-risk obstetrician and laparoscopic surgeon, passed from the prestigious KEM hospital in Mumbai, and she's practicing since the last 30 years. She's currently a private consultant at Criticare Asia Multi-Speciality Hospital in Kurla West in Mumbai, and runs her own gynecological clinic and nursing home. She has taken several educational workshops on menstrual problems and written various articles in newspapers and health magazines. She has published international papers and written chapters in books in the field of gynecology. 2 things she's really passionate about are the environment and women's health. Dr. Suman Bijlani, it's a pleasure to welcome you to this roundtable. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Naresh, for the very kind words. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of us. Menstruation, we all know, has been always a taboo subject. It's been a closed door subject. Women, of course, amongst ourselves, we love to talk about our periods, but in public, I don't know if it's only immodest, it's even embarrassing to a large extent. I think the scenario is changing now, fortunately. As a gynecologist, of course, like Naresh said, he's used such beautiful words, intrinsic to... It's the very basis of human life. Of course, we know periods are the very basis of human life. And something like that, I mean, I think as a woman, as a female lot, it's our privilege to be having the periods and to be able to carry the human race forward. And yet, for some reason, this subject has been ridden with all kinds of biases, social and religious, as well as certain amounts of taboos. So let's discuss that. Let's figure out. See, as I have been an urban woman, I have personally not faced that much of the taboos. Was in a very educated, a very open kind of a family system. We didn't have many taboos to deal with. But I think society at large has a lot more to tell us about it. So we have a very, very diverse and esteemed panel here today. And let me, without any further ado, introduce the panelists first. So we have Dr. Mona Shah. She's a senior occupational therapist and clinical psychologist. Would we please highlight her also, Shilpa? She heads the Anshu Adult and Pediatric Development Center in Mumbai. She has been a past president of Rotary Club of Bombay, Juhu Beach. She is extremely passionate about community service and has headed multiple initiatives for various causes, and in particular also about menstrual hygiene, and has conducted various camps across the district and at international levels in the Rotary, and that is for more than a decade. So she's highly experienced. Her passion for life and service is evident in many ways. You will find out as we go along. She's also written a book called Ekansh, a unique guide for each parent. Next, I would like to talk about Dr. Neha Khade. She's a gynecologist. She's very young and she's just begun her career. She has but a lot of experience with dealing with the underprivileged urban women in society. So she knows what's happening at the grassroots in Mumbai itself. So hi, Dr. Neha, welcome to you too. Tanya Mittal next. She is a social entrepreneur, policy enthusiast, and she's working currently as an intern at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. She holds a diploma in peace and conflict studies with a feminist focus. She has worked with various international organizations, including CRY, MASH Foundation, Safe Water Network, and others, to advocate menstrual health and education, and has conducted various workshops for all strata of society, including tribal women in this regard. Welcome, Tanya, too. Next is Rikita Narula. She is a menstrual health and hygiene expert. She works as a senior project manager at Sachi Saheli organization and has played a key role in designing and implementing programs around menstrual health and hygiene solutions, and has had also purposeful government collaborations in this regard with various state governments across the country, and has managed CSR projects to the same end. Through her efforts, she has created awareness, she has trained professionals and school children alike. And next, and last but not the least, we have Khushi Sharma. She's a young, dynamic woman. She's a beautician. She's very young and she is going to share her insights on what the grassroots level problems and or thinking or mindset is. Okay. So I think let's get into the discussion. Let's just dive into it. We are the two senior people, I think Dr. Mona Shah and myself. So I think we had maybe a different kind of upbringing. Dr. Mona, my first question is going to be to you. So when you were growing up, what were when you started getting your periods, what was the environment, the mahal, how was it? And would you talk about it? What was the scene?
Very good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me on this panel, which is very, very heart touching, and I've been very passionate about it. Frankly speaking, Dr. Suman, if you truly ask, while growing up, I have also used a cloth. And staying in the urban city, I've been brought up in Mumbai, but I have been used that the awareness, what we know could be because of not that much awareness about not that high society. What I understand from that, coming up in an average middle class society, and the schooling which we used to go, we have used it coming from a very strong cultural background of a religious background. Though we were very forward and education was a thing that has not come to me, like not sitting aside or not touching everything, but that was very common to every cousin of mine. So this was a taboo, though it was not like in the schools, there was no instructions, there was nothing. But from my mother's side, she was very forward and she had intimated me. So that thing was not there. But yes, obviously, what we want to discuss today, I have already experienced that, to stick to your answer.
Okay, Khushi, now she is the youngest one here. खुशी आप हैं यहाँ पर? खुशी मैं आपको देख नहीं सकती हूँ. आप जरा
Yes,
अपना
ma'am.
वीडियो आपका वीडियो ऑन करेंगी क्या? Is it? Can
Actually,
everybody
ma'am,
see us? जी. जी खुशी.
actually, ma'am, हाँ मैं कंफर्टेबल नहीं हूँ ऐसे वीडियो ऑन करने में. मैं
ओके, कोई बात नहीं, इट्स परफेक्टली फाइन. तो आप मुझे बताइए खुशी, आप तो हमारी अभी नई जनरेशन की लड़की हैं, तो आप हमको ये बताइए कि आप जैसे अभी बड़ी हो रही थी, आपको जब पीरियड्स आने लगे, तो क्या आपको आपकी मम्मी ने कुछ रेस्ट्रिक्शंस बताया कि पीरियड्स में ऐसा नहीं करना, ये छूना नहीं, या फिर आपको स्कूल में वगैरह कुछ एजुकेशन हुआ, आपको क्या एक्सपीरियंस रहा आपका?
एक्चुअली मैम जब मैं फर्स्ट टाइम मेरा पीरियड्स आया था तभी मेरी मम्मी का बोलना था कि मतलब पीरियड्स में मतलब बोलते हैं ना कि भगवान के पास नहीं जाना है, पूजा नहीं करना है. बहुत सारी चीजें थी जो मुझे पता चली बाद में पीरियड्स आने के बाद, जो मुझे पहले से इसका एक्सपीरियंस नहीं था बिल्कुल भी.
तो आप पीरियड्स में पूजा नहीं करती हैं, आप बाल नहीं
नहीं
धोती? आप बाल धोती हैं पीरियड्स में?
नहीं मैम, पीरियड्स के 4th डे के बाद हेयर वॉश करते हैं.
अच्छा, और कोई रेस्ट्रिक्शन है कि आप यहाँ वहां नहीं जाना किसी के पास, या कुछ छूना नहीं, ऐसा कुछ अचार नहीं छूना, ऐसा कुछ?
हाँ हाँ है. अचार नहीं छूना मतलब वो खराब हो जाएगा ऐसा
अच्छा,
वैसा.
अचार खराब हो जाएगा. ओके.
मतलब अभी मेरे घर पे तो ऐसा नहीं मानते, लेकिन बहुत लोगों के घर पे ऐसा भी होता है कि किचन में नहीं जाना है, ये नहीं करना है, मतलब एक वो थाली में खाना नहीं खाना है, उनका अलग से खाना होता है, प्लेट होता है, सब कुछ. बहुत सारी चीजें ऐसी होती है अभी भी.
अच्छा, खाना भी अलग, प्लेट भी अलग?
जी बहुत जगह पे होती है. एक मेरी फ्रेंड है, उनके यहाँ पे भी सेम यही यही होता है कि उसको मतलब जैसे उसका पीरियड्स है ना, उनको बिस्तर अलग होता है, खाना पीना सब उनका अलग प्लेट में देते, साइड में किचन में नहीं आने देते. बट वो
तो
बहुत सारी चीजें ऐसी हैं.
इसकी वजह क्या बताते हैं, रीजन क्या कहते हैं, आपको क्या कहते हैं, क्यों नहीं करना है ऐसा?
क्योंकि मैम बहुत लोग इसको है ना गलत चीजों से भी देखते हैं कि ये छुआ
जैसे?
है, ये ऐसी ये है वो है, मतलब बहुत सारी चीजें हैं.
ओके.
हम्म.
Rikita, so you have been out there even among the tribal women and all. So you've seen all classes of women. So what is your experience? What do you think is happening here today?
Thank you, Dr. Suman, for the question. I think it's a very interesting question for me. Over the last 7 years, I think 7.5 years that I've worked on the field, I've seen all, I've met all kinds of women. There's one thing that I always say, that this menstrual taboo is one that generally doesn't discriminate against caste, classes, and other such stratas, because it's everywhere. I've seen that. We started working from Delhi. It's an urban place, right? We would imagine that this taboo isn't persistent in this particular strata, but that's not true. It's persistent across classes, across states, across all kinds of strata, you name it. For example, it's a whole journey that you take. अगर आप एक ट्रेन में चढ़ेंगे और आप उतरेंगे अलग अलग स्टेशन में, आप देखेंगे कि आप हर किसी से बात करेंगे तो आपको पता चलेगा कि कहाँ कहाँ पे क्या क्या लोग मान रहे हैं. Pickle, not touching pickle, a villain everywhere. Poor pickle has to be subjected to this behavior across wherever geography you take it. It's a thing that has to be subjected to neglect from women around their periods everywhere. I think one of the most important and the one that we really need to talk about is the religious activities that you're prohibited from sort of entering into when you get your period. I got my first period when in Delhi. And I'm from Delhi. I've been in Delhi all my life. I've stayed in Bombay. So just an example, I got my first period when I think there's this thing called Kanya Pujan or Kanjak that we do, right? When the Navratras end. That's the day that I got my first period. Again, the same education background that perhaps most of us come from. I got my first period that day. It's a very exciting day for us as young girls. You're wanted the most in your localities. Everyone's calling you here and there. Everyone say, okay, come to our house, come to our house. You carry a sling bag, you're happy, you're carefree. It's such a great day of the year. And that day you get your period and your grandmother tells you, you know what, now you can't sit in this puja anymore. Just please get out, evict. So the idea is also so paradoxical, right? Not to sort of, and this is exactly the approach we follow, not to ridicule this soch that it comes from कि आप शुद्ध नहीं हैं. That is the entire thing that comes out from across the states and across the categories that we've been on, that you're an impure woman at this point. A girl, imagine, she is extremely carefree before she enters this phase of her life. She's fun, she has dreams for her life, she's confident. You're actually at this point during puberty, you're actually at your best. So you're very happy. And this day, someone tells you, get up, you're not required here, you cannot sit here. Imagine the kind of mental impact that has on you. It leaves a lasting impact. I still remember that day of my life. And every time that I take stories from the field, of first period story, hum lete hain field se, every time that I take this story of this story from the field, I'll tell you one thing is important to note here, that they will remember each and every detail, date, time, place where it happened, because it leaves that lasting an impact. So for example, I was taken out of that puja, and then as you grow up, you realize यहाँ पर तो देवी की पूजा हो रही थी. Suddenly, what happened that I'm not a devi anymore? What happened to this entire thing? So there's a lot of emotional baggage that you carry, is what I've seen through these experiences. Achar nahi chuna. Something as important as what I've also taken from all these experiences across the geographies that I've been in. You cannot be in touch with, or you cannot come into close proximity with the male members of your family. So the kind of families that usually these girls are living in is a close knit family. There's less space also in the house. In many houses, you'll see there's not a lot of privacy that you can get while you're menstruating. But even so, in that little space, you're required to kind of isolate yourself from the family, owing to the cultural practices and beliefs that you have. So this has been there's a lot that I can talk about, but this is a summarized version of what I can bring to the table and the experiences that I can bring from. And I possibly can't do justice to all the women and all the girls and all the menstruators that I've met throughout my journey. But this is just a little bit of a insight into what they go through. So it's definitely an emotional baggage. It's definitely a transition emotionally and physically. It's definitely it still persists. It's definitely you have to isolate yourself a lot, and of course the other beliefs and practices that you have to follow through it all. So yes, this is what I can bring to the table
I think in
as
this
of now.
context, Tanya had something interesting to tell me when I was speaking to her the other day about Devi ki aapne jo baat ki. So about the Devi temple and how actually menstruation has been in medieval India worshipped. So Tanya,
Yeah.
could you tell us something about that?
Absolutely. I mean, taking lead from what Rikita said as well. And once again, thank you so much, Dr. Suman, and to the entire panel for just having me here. It's lovely, lovely to hear all these perspectives, especially on menstruation, which we think is such a taboo topic. And I'm just glad that there is more awareness, there is more talk about this. So, from an eco-feminist lens, I wanted to bring a little more perspective to the table. We see a lot of cyclical connection with nature when it comes to menstruation, because it is natural. It's absolutely natural. Isme koi form of impurity this taboo topic of, okay, you cannot enter religious institutions, you cannot practice any religious kind of activities during this time. These are absolutely I think these should be rubbish, all of these assumptions. What I had spoken to Dr. Suman earlier also was this very interesting phenomenon that I've seen. Basically, there is the Kamakhya Devi temple in Assam. I'm not sure how many of us here are from Assam, know about this temple, but do read up on this because it's rooted in Hindu mythology. And it's very interesting when we were reading about it for the first time, and I realized that this connection of menstruation with the temple and the celebration of feminine energy, fertility is still extremely prevalent. So क्या होता क्या exactly कि the womb or the yoni of the goddess Sati, when she it's basically a Shakti Pitha या एक religious stone जिसे कह सकते हैं. It was one of the yoni and the womb. This was fallen one of her paths in Assam, and wahan pe they basically worship this, and the fact that there is a lot of if I can call it this way, that there's a lot of constant idolization, a lot of and the fact that menstruation is seen as something that can be talked about, and rather not being a taboo topic like the rest of many
celebrated.
It is celebrated 100%. And also there's an Ambubachi Mela that I was telling Dr. Suman about as well. So every year for about 3 days during this festival, ऐसा होता है कि ये टेम्पल पूरा बंद कर देते हैं एंड यहाँ पे ना व्हाइट क्लॉथ्स या सफेद कपड़े लगा देते हैं एंड विच इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग बिकॉज दिस फिनोमिनन व्हाट दे से इज एंड दे बिलीव दैट ऑन द 4th डे ये सारा कपड़ा लाल हो जाएगा. And that itself is, like a celebration of the fact that the color bleed is, or the color red is not actually bad. It's not something that should be seen as a taboo. And that kind of awareness is extremely important. So the fact that it is so mired in our religious institutions and yet there is a stigma around it, it just makes me feel really bad about the fact that there is a lot of the portrayal or the representation of it in mainstream media has to be changed. It really has to be changed.
So thank you so much. I think excellent inputs here. I would like to add that, when I was growing up, I had absolutely no access to menstrual education. I got my first period when I was 10 and a half. I knew nothing. I was bleeding for 3 days before I told my mom. I thought I had cancer. Because one of the signs of cancer in a biology textbook was bleeding from various sites, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I was convinced I had cancer for 3 days. I was absolutely scared shit. Finally, I had no choice but to go and speak to my mom about it. And that's when I first came to know that there was something known as period. And I got to know that I'm going to bleed every month. And I was in tears for days. And by the time I could reconcile with that, I mean, it was different times. I mean, nowadays, at least you have access. Children know about it. Neha, what has been your experience?
So hello everyone. So as my mother basically came from a rural and she settled in the urban area. So when I got my first period, as Ritika said, we definitely remember what our date and what our month of our first period would be. So it was October, and this is the time of the Kanya Pujan and all of that. And my mom told me, now you'll not be going there because it's not allowed now. So I had this thing कि ठीक है periods आ गया तो उसमें इतना क्या है कि अगर periods है तो why not कन्या पूजा. तो then I was like ठीक है, that is one thing. Then second thing what I came to know was कि नहीं भगवान के पास भी नहीं जाना है because it's not allowed. And then I asked her कि but why is it not allowed? So she said no, this is what I have been told, so I'm telling you that we are not supposed to go there. So I said, okay. Then eventually when MBBS started and all of this started, and in 8th, 9th standard, we all friends and all, we used to talk, ki haan, abhi periods aane wale hai. So everyone knew it, that this is going to happen. Plus there was this sanitary pad that used to, there used to be a day where, 8th, 9th standard, they used to come and distribute sanitary pads. So we knew about it. And males, at that moment also, the males were not allowed in the class. So it used to happen during the Scouts and Guides period when they were not allowed. And it used to happen only when the girls were around. That was one. And then eventually after physiology and everything was taught, I told my mom that this is absolutely natural and it keeps happening to everyone. And as you said, you're not supposed to go near God, but there are female gods as well. And they were females. They even would be having periods. So why are we not allowed to go near the God itself? But still there was no answer to it because it was just that my mother had taught me this. So I'm passing it on to you.
No, but these things, they get so ingrained in your system. For example, I obviously know it's nothing impure about it, but till today, I don't do puja in my periods. I just don't feel comfortable with it because it has been ingrained in my system for so many years. So I mean, it's now that then it finally becomes an individual choice, maybe, I mean, there's also, I would like to add that, I have seen the lower class women who come to us, the workers and all we have, in their homes and in their colonies, they actually have celebration when any girl gets the period. That's still happening even in the colonies that we see around us. So I think there's a mixed kind of a reaction. Do we think that all taboos are bad? खुशी आप सुन रही हैं? खुशी, ये जो आपको लगता है कि ये आपको ये छूना नहीं है, वो करना नहीं है, ऐसा ये सब आपको बुरा लगता है, आपको लगता है ठीक है ये सब?
स्टार्टिंग में मैम मुझे बहुत बुरा लगा था, बट धीरे धीरे जब पता चल गया कि ऐसा ही है तो फिर ओके
एक्सेप्ट कर लिया आपने उसको?
जी, बट ये चीज गलत है मैम।
ओके, क्यों गलत है?
क्योंकि जब ये हम लोग का बोलते थे स्टार्टिंग में, जब हम बोलते हैं ना कि गर्ल्स को मतलब देवी मानते हैं
जी,
क्या करते हैं उनको मतलब बोलते हैं ना।
हाँ 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 जी, बोलिए ना, नो प्रॉब्लम।
एक्चुअली है ना मैम, बोलते हैं कि लड़कियां लक्ष्मी का रूप होती है, ये होती है, तो जब पीरियड्स आते हैं तो फिर उनको ऐसा क्यों करते हैं? तो नहीं करना चाहिए।
So this is a question of the common girl today कि ऐसा हमारे साथ क्यों? Now, what is your organization as an organization, as a CSR activist? आप लोगों ने क्या किया इसके लिए? What all you have been doing?
Yes, I think, Dr. Suman, I think what we focused on at this point is, जो आपका question था कि क्या ये गलत है? I think the idea here is to talk about, and that's a great question, कि ये जो सारी taboos हम जिनके साथ deal कर रहे हैं, क्या ये गलत है या सही है? The question here should be perhaps, um, is it logical? Is it
Okay.
pertinent? Is it is it something that is in sync with the life we are living today? So that's the mindset approach. So in our organization, the approach that we've always taken is the mindset approach. We first understand what is the prevailing mindset of the in the current scenario wherever we are working, and then we try to work on the mindset. How is it perceived? If menstrual health or if menstruation, health तो बहुत दूर की बात है. Menstruation, if menstruation is perceived in a negative light or a positive light. So we work on the attitude towards menstruation, which is the mindset. And then what is the next best thing that can help you, get a positive attitude towards menstruation? What is the next best thing? It's knowledge. If I have entirely got the knowledge about my body and what is happening and what is the process, ये प्योर है या इम्प्योर है, मैं खुद डिसाइड कर लूंगी. फिर मुझे प्रोसेस पता चल जाएगा तो मैं खुद डिसाइड कर लूंगी कि ये प्योर है या इम्प्योर है. नोबडी फ्रॉम आउटसाइड विल हैव टू कम एंड टेल मी दैट आई एम इम्प्योर. So then you go walk them through the knowledge, and knowledge सिर्फ इसलिए नहीं, process के लिए नहीं. It's also a health thing. Menstruation is not just a social thing, it's also a health thing. So you bring in the health aspect, and I'm sure Dr. Suman, you agree with me that and I know this because I work so closely with Dr. Surbi, who's a gynecologist who runs this organization. She had told me that how she would get patients who would not even understand कि bleeding कब normal है, कब doctor के पास जाना है, या फिर अपना menstrual cycle का count भी कैसे करना है. So this basic knowledge about our own bodies is missing. So the menstrual health aspect comes in and we give them that knowledge. So then the health aspect is covered. Then of course comes in the hygiene aspect. You tell them exactly how to manage your periods, how to dispose the products, what are the various kinds of products available to you. There's a possibility that you can choose for yourself the kind of product that you want to use. That you don't have to just use the thing that everyone's telling you to use. There's no problem with using cloth if it's used well. So you've got to give them the choice. You got to give them the choice and the context that they come from. You have to give them the choice that way. So then that comes in. So once we've basically done the knowledge part, we anticipate that this knowledge will help in behavior change. That is exactly the kind of process that we
That's
follow.
great work. That's great
Yes.
work you're doing, I think. Dr.
Thank you,
Mona,
Dr.
you've been
Suman.
working along these lines too, right? So what has been your experience? She has been working for more than a decade, okay? So could you tell us the trend? What are the changes in the mindset you've seen, in the last 10 to 12 years? Have things changed?
See, that's a perfect thing looking back at my journey, how we started. So basically in 2012, we all know SC Nielsen is a global marketing research firm. And as a national survey, at that time they had a survey that 25% of the girls in India drop out of school or miss their 40 to 50 days of the school in a academic year after they reach their puberty.
Oh.
What I'm talking about is in 2012, this survey reached us too as a Rotary organization. And when that is the first time we thought that this is the thing which really need to address. And we started addressing this cause. We started with a very much like taking a survey, how you spoke about it. The schools were in the primary schools and we identified the donor. We started with a very small school of 8th, 9th and 10th standard girls, started giving them the yearly supply of sanitary pads. What I'm talking about, me and Suman is of definitely a different generation. We already crossed our 50 and you all are youngsters. So 2012, when I started over there started in the schools of the Mumbai and the municipal schools, I don't think so anybody at that time in that school were using sanitary pads.
Oh.
So we giving them sanitary pad was a very big thing, and we started giving them a yearly supply to them, taking a proper data of this. And it's not only giving and just supply.
And this was in, sorry, which city was this in?
Mumbai.
In Mumbai itself?
Mumbai, Vile Parla Sannyas Ashram School.
Oh my God. Oh,
So it's a
okay.
municipal school. What I'm talking about is 2012, and the class of 8th, 9th, and 10th girls. Obviously, the girls were very much like they are not aware of anything. None of them were using sanitary pads. We used to have talk with a gynecologist, invite them. They will first half an hour, the girls will be absolutely mum. They will not ask a single question about this. Slowly, they started understanding. And the interesting thing is when we give them the yearly supply of sanitary pads, like it's a big bag. When you are giving them 12 packs, each containing, there's a symbolic 8 pads. And we used to donate them 12 pads with panties, because it was also important to give them panties at that point, and very good pictorial description of the reproductive system, how the menstruation cycle is happening, how it is the blood flow and everything, and what care you should take. So that is how nicely the gynecologist used to explain them. None of the girls were ready to take that bag of sanitary pads,
Oh,
because
why?
the co-ed school, and then as soon as they will leave the class, the boys will ask and then they will tease. So it's so like it, we never thought of when we will give them, they'll not carry this with this because it's a separate bag, and the 12 packs will not fit in their school bag. So that was a very big thing, and it was an experience. Then teachers, what used to do when they will leave the school, slowly they started handing over to them the separate bag when the boys have left the school.
Oh my
So
God.
that's how we started with this. Eventually, with that survey, every year, I want to at this point thank donors from overseas who has been donating, and Rotary Club of Bombay, Juhu Beach. We were the first one to start this initiative in 2012 as a district 3141, and continuously every year we have been donating yearly supply of sanitary pads.
So
Now,
has the scenario changed now? I mean, in last 10
yeah,
years, like,
so
how is it now today?
eventually what we saw that then government also started understanding, the policies has started, and they started giving the sanitary pads to the municipal school girls in Mumbai and this Maharashtra cities. We extended, what I realized is then we moved it to the interior, like Palghar, Jawahar, all that places. And in 2015, as an initiative, from a Rotary as a global grant, I had installed a sanitary pad and manufacturing unit.
Oh, that's
The
nice.
youngsters, you all are aware of the Padman movie. This initiative was taken before the Padman movie came. The whole purpose of this initiative was with incinerators. By the time we had found about the incinerators, my whole point was the women themselves will manufacture the sanitary pads. The raw material cost will be taken care by the club, and they will sell the sanitary pads. That will help them to earn something, and that will further motivate them to create awareness and do this thing.
Awesome.
This really worked well. The awareness started in during that area. The students and the girls and the women started talking about it. But Dr. Suman, when we go to the interior, when we were that time giving, it was a big shock, because that time also the panties were required, because the women were wearing sari and they were not wearing any set inside which hold them for the sanitary pad. And that was a big thing for
So
us.
how were they protecting themselves? What were they doing instead?
So they will use some cloth and tie up with some thread or something around their waist
Okay.
during that time. And maybe like when we are talking about some tribal and interior villages and all, because I'm really surprised they have hardly any clothes to wear on their body. How are they going to get another clothes? They might tie up with some cotton or some leaves and all such things, and they'll try and protect themselves. And there, it was like a very different scenario when you move inside this cities. Eventually, when I have started going to other districts and in the cities of Gujarat, over there, school girls, what we are talking about, the school girls and the college, not the college, but the daycare, like where the girls used to stay, that kind of hostel kind of thing and all. We started talking about it. I want to really share something over here is that when I was talking about, obviously over there, nobody was giving them sanitary pads till today. Till today in this school, nobody is giving them. And sorry to say, some of the government schemes, when they give these pads, it's hardly not enough for the yearly supply, and the quality is very poor. So when we had stopped giving them, they said, "Ma'am, please continue giving us because that pads are not good." Now the girl used to ask me, "Ma'am, cancer hota hai na sanitary pad use karenge to?"
Oh, it's another myth.
So,
Okay.
yeah, what level of myth? It's what level of myth. And that is how, what I see in short about this, that awareness in the cities of Mumbai and in the schools, as we see, has increased now. We have definitely moved to the interior of this thing. And because here, as with the awareness, some of these slums, like where the parents are getting, they want their children to have a better life, have prioritized certain amount to use the sanitary pads. So
Still, I
that's
think there is
how.
still a lot of gap, I think, which needs to be covered. Tanya, could you tell us something about your experiences? Because you really worked with all strata and across the country.
Definitely, ma'am. And Dr. Mona, in her illustrious career herself, talked about, so many of her experiences. What I also realized, I mean, she talked about Batman, the movie. A lot of us got to know. I mean, the first time I had to tell my brother, ki, acha, there is also a phenomenon like this because he's much younger than me. And to just, in a mainstream manner, debunk the myths around menstruation. The first time I remember showing him Padman or going for that movie with him. Similarly, मैंने एक documentary देखी थी, which is called Period End of Sentence, and it's fantastic. So to all the audience members who have not watched this yet, it in fact won so many awards and accolades at a global platform. उसमें ना एक scene है which really speaks to me, जिसमें वो लड़की कहती है वो हश होता है, they come and ask her कि what periods क्या होते हैं तो ऐसे खी करके हंसती हैं लड़कियां. And then she says कि another angle that I wanted to bring to the discussion also is that disposal is also such a big problem, especially when it comes to more rural settings in the country, or villages or tribal districts in the country.
We'll be coming to disposal right now.
Absolutely, but just the point that I had to make was about this doggy that's taking that pad and then going away with it. So that is one movie ka instance that just speaks to me. But yeah, in my experience, I've also realized one more thing, that sensitizing these women, yes, important, but sensitizing the boys is equally important.
Yeah, I agree.
With the boys, giving
Great
them,
point.
because the hush hush is not only about just making the girls learn, it's also about the dads learning, going and fetching their pads, the boy is learning along, and then being a more cohesive learning system.
In my own practice, I have seen, it's earlier it was never the case, but in the last few years, I've seen a lot of young boys, say in their 20s, bringing their perimenopausal women to the clinic for menstrual problems, which was not the case earlier. The women would come alone or with the husband at the most, but the sons were never a part of it. But now brothers, sons, they all do come to the clinic with their respective relatives. So that's heartening. खुशी, आप मेरे को बताइए, ये लोग सब बात कर रहे हैं पैड्स के बारे में कि लड़कियों को, कई लड़कियों को कपड़ा के बारे में, कपड़े ही यूज करते थे, पैड्स तक का पता नहीं था. आपके क्या एक्सपीरियंस है? आपकी मम्मी ने आपको पैड यूज करना सिखाया था?
एक्चुअली मैम, जब मैं फर्स्ट टाइम स्टार्टिंग में हुई थी तो आई नो मुझे खुद नहीं पता था कि पीरियड्स क्या होता था. पीरियड्स में उतना नहीं पता था, मतलब ऐसा होता कि बहुत एज के बाद होता है, बॉडी प्रॉब्लम होती है, एक बीमारी होती है, बट ऐसा नहीं था. जब मैं फर्स्ट टाइम हुई थी तब मेरी मम्मी ने मुझे बोला था कपड़ा नहीं यूज करना है उसके लिए, तो उन्होंने मुझे फर्स्ट टाइम में पैड दिया था.
अच्छा, आपकी सारी फ्रेंड्स भी पैड्स ही यूज करती
बोला
थी?
नहीं है, बट सॉरी कि उन्होंने मुझे पैड दिया, बट वो हमेशा कपड़ा ही यूज करते अपने लिए.
अच्छा, और
उनको
आपकी
हमेशा
फ्रेंड्स?
बोलती हूँ कि नहीं करना चाहिए, बट वो फिर भी करते हैं.
ओके, और आपकी फ्रेंड्स क्या यूज करती हैं?
मेरे फ्रेंड्स ऑलमोस्ट सब वही यूज करते हैं, पैड ही यूज करते हैं. कपड़ा बहुत बहुत रेयरली, मतलब बहुत एक दो है जो मतलब थोड़े एजेड है, वो यूज करते हैं कभी कभी.
So Dr. Neha, can you please, from the medical health perspective, tell us about the menstrual health hygiene products which are available? So which are the ones and which are the pros and cons? कौन से use करना, What is
Right.
butter?
So the one which is being used rampantly is the sanitary napkin that we have all used. The second would be the tampons that were introduced. And the third would be the menstrual cup, which is the talk of the social media currently as well. So the first time that I started using was also a sanitary napkin. Eventually, I got to know through a friend's parent that something known as tampons is also used. I spoke to my mom about it, and she said that no, you're not supposed to put anything in your vagina, basically. So later on in my MBBS and eventually through my PG, I started using the tampon and got to know that it was really, really, really a blessing than the pad, because once we start using the pad, it gets icky and gooey eventually. And if you don't have a place to change it, then it's the end of it. Second thing, the disposal thing for the sanitary pad. If you don't have the disposable bag that are recently available, which are biodegradable, that is one, or the newspaper or any kind of paper, then you're stuck. Then you can't, then either the options, even I would say that initially when I didn't have an option, I did flush it. I would agree to it because there was no other choice. So didn't keep it aside, but then did flush it. And because of all these
And
things,
block all the pipes.
yes. And then eventually, when I started using the tampon, I thought that was the best thing that happened to me. I did try the menstrual cup as well, but then menstrual cup, once it takes, I think, 2 or 3 attempts to learn it, how to
There's a
actually
learning
put
curve.
it. Yes. And then after that, only one thing which I realized with the menstrual cup was I had been outside, I was traveling, and there was no water supply. So once I removed the cup, I threw the blood, but then there was no water to clean it. Then again, I was stuck. So that is when I thought that there are two options. Either I start using the tampons again, or the second thing was I use another cup. I carry 2 cups with me. So the pros with the pad, I think, is it's when you don't have access to water or anything of that sort, then you can use the sanitary pad or the tampon, and you carry your own disposable bags with it so that you don't have to depend on anything else. And the tampon, as I said, you can again swim and do whatever you want to do with the tampon in, and same with the menstrual cup. But with the sanitary pad, it's a little icky, so you can't probably swimming, so definitely not with the sanitary pad on. Then other activities as well, tampons and menstrual cup go for a win-win. Only with the menstrual cup, as I said, if you don't have the access to water, you can't use the same cup again. And tampons, I feel that hence currently I'm on the tampon age and I'm using the tampons regularly.
Oh, I think when it comes to the menstrual cup, I think where it really scores a big win is the environmental health, because the disposal, I mean, it's something which is reusable. And I think tell me something about the menstrual waste. Rikita, will you tell us about the menstrual waste which is being generated? We'll talk about disposal also. Tanya will also have to say something about it. Rikita, please.
Yes, I have a point just to contribute to the discussion around
Yes,
menstrual
please do.
products.
Yes.
There's one concept that we highly advocate across wherever we go, which is called the concept of informed choice. You'll have millions and millions of products that will come in even now. Like we're getting menstrual discs, we're getting menstrual sponges, we're getting all sorts of these things. The idea is that every menstruator is told about and informed about the pros and cons of each of these products, and then let them decide and what is it that they'd like to use. So for example, like Dr. Neha said that, she was carrying a menstrual cup and there was no water supply. And even though it's a great product, but it doesn't fit her context at that point. So during COVID, I must tell you this example about this product thing, and this will also bring in the disposal part also. So during COVID, when most of the country was shut during the first and the second lockdown, there was this red light district area. There is this red light district area in Delhi called the GB Road. So very well-meaning people collected a few cloth pads and said, okay, you know what, we want to get them distributed at GB Road because they were out of work. There was no access to other things for these sex workers. I went there during COVID. I distributed the cloth pads. I gave them as much of, with the limited amount of time that I had, gave them as much knowledge as I could. I went there again. And then I asked them what was the response to cloth pads. So they said, this is something that we can't use. I said, but why? It's a great product. They said, there is no point only. आप हमको cloth pads दोगे, हम धो के सुखाएंगे कहाँ? There is no place. We don't get sunlight coming in. तो आपने बोला था तेज धूप में सुखाना है. कहाँ से आएगी? हमारे यहाँ तो धूप आती ही नहीं है. So context is important in that sense. Cloth pad बहुत अच्छा product है. Was it suitable to that context? No. Other thing that they told us कि अगर हम ये pad पहन के कहीं सुखा भी देंगे तो other girls will get to know that I'm menstruating and they'll take my work away from me. So you get these stories, from the field, and then you realize that you are well-meaning, sure, but is your education relevant to them? So calculating that is also extremely important. And then
Great
when it
point.
comes to, when it comes to disposal, we live in urban areas. We have access to perhaps someone picking up garbage for us. Okay, so हम उसको wrap करके अपने dustbin में डाल देते हैं. We forget about it. We don't even think about it. We forget about it. We don't understand. We don't know where that pad is going. We don't know what is happening to it. It's a disposable product. Wherever it goes, it's none of our business. हम जब wrap भी करते हैं, we don't really take care of whether it's wrapped up properly or taped up properly or not. वो आता है रैप करके, वो खुल जाता है बहुत आसानी से. तो जो भी डिस्पोज कर रहा है, जो भी आपका कचरा हैंडल कर रहा है टुवर्ड्स द एंड पॉइंट, what happens is it's such a neglected state of affairs at this point, and it's so sad that who's handling your menstrual waste gets then is at risk of getting unhealthy, is at risk of getting infections. So such a huge problem when it comes to disposal. And till the last end, what happens to that product is something that we really need to think about, and not just at a not just at a level of organizations or individuals for that matter. This discussion is a very proper policy. It has to be a policy governed decision. Proper policies, proper things have to happen around for that disposal to be a complete disposal and through that end. That's one problem. The other problem is, चलो यहाँ पर हमने दे दिया, हमें नहीं पता क्या हो रहा है, हमें एटलीस्ट डिस्पोज करना आता है. अर्बन वालों को डिस्पोज करना आता है, वो रैप करके डस्टबिन में फेंक देते हैं, चला जाता है. देन यू मूव टुवर्ड्स सिटीज वेयर देयर इज नो सच ऐसी कोई सुविधा नहीं है वहां पर. हाँ, देयर इज नो सच इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. इनफैक्ट आई वेंट टू स्कूल्स इन ओडिशा. I saw government schools in Odisha. वहां पर तो डस्टबिन भी नहीं है ना वॉशरूम्स में. When there are no dustbins, there is nobody coming to collect the garbage. What are you left to do? Either you dig it in the ground, and then I realized when I went there, what tends to happen is, so they dig it in the ground, but the ground that the ground and the space that they're using is very close to the water supply. So the water supply gets contaminated because of that entire thing. तो अब उसकी भी education ठीक से नहीं है. There are organizations working properly on disposal. In fact, WSSCC was one organization in India who would actually go to government. In fact, I've been a part of one of their trainings. I trained them on other aspects, and then there was another educator who trained the government officials on disposal. They have a proper disposal strategy कि आप ये लोगों को जाके सिखाओ जहां पर डिस्पोजल करना कैसे है, कितना डिस्टेंस होना चाहिए वाटर सप्लाई से कि वहां पर आप एक डग करो ग्राउंड और उसके अंदर डिस्पोज करो अगर करना है तो. देन देयर इज इंसिनरेशन, जलाना पैड्स को जलाना इज ऑब्वियसली बैड फॉर द एनवायरमेंट, बट कमिंग टू दैट, एटलीस्ट इट्स समथिंग आप डिस्पोज कर तो रहे हो, बट इट्स ऑल्सो वेरी टॉक्सिक. द फ्यूम्स दैट कम आउट ऑफ इट आर ऑल्सो वेरी टॉक्सिक. सो इफ यू आर कंज्यूमिंग दोज फ्यूम्स एज अ पर्सन हु इज डिस्पोजिंग that's also bad. So disposal remains an issue not on an individual level. It remains an issue on a whole national level, and policies need to come up for it. Governments need to talk about disposals and incinerations. I must come to, since we're talking about disposals, small scale incinerations. वो जो machines आती हैं जो हम schools में लगाते हैं, हमने भी लगवाई हैं. जो CSR funds होते हैं वो लोग बहुत advocate करते हैं इसको, because it's something tangible. आपने pad vending machine लगा दी, आपने एक incinerator लगा दिया, great stuff, great, not a problem. The problem is small scale incineration is also very bad for the environment. So what we really need to do at this point is, अगर incineration करना भी है तो it should be a government responsibility. There should be large scale incinerations outside of the city somewhere, and that is where you would take the disposal and ideally incinerate it there, and not in just different parts of the city. That is not healthy. So yeah,
very, very valid point. I hope the
disposal.
admins are looking into this, and the RISE Summit will be able to, get somebody to look into this and take some initiative. Sorry, Tanya, Rikita,
Yes.
I interrupted you. Yeah.
No, that's really it. I would just like to bring the disposal aspect. It is definitely an individual effort. अगर हम भी dispose कर रहे हैं, and in fact in Pune there is this great, there are these great individuals, and I am so sorry I'm forgetting their name. उन्होंने कितना अच्छा campaign चलाया था कि आप अपना pad wrap करो, अपना menstrual waste wrap करो और उसके ऊपर एक red dot लगाओ, so that the person who's handling your garbage can know that this is menstrual waste. So we have different kinds of waste, like Dr. Suman, you would know medical waste is also marked separately and
Yes,
everything.
yes, of
So
course.
in the same way, menstrual waste also needs to be marked separately, and it's something that needs to come into practice. अब हम बोलेंगे कि कैसे कराएंगे ये लोगों से, लोग तो करते नहीं है, ये गलत है, लोग करते हैं। आप इंदौर में देखो, वहां पर अगर वो नंबर 1 बना है तो क्यों बना है? वहां पर लोगों ने आदतें डाली है ना, लाइक इट हैज बीन। अगर अगर आप मिथ्स इंडोक्ट्रिनेट कर सकते हो, अगर आप बैड प्रैक्टिसेस इंडोक्ट्रिनेट कर सकते हो, तो आप गुड प्रैक्टिसेस भी इंडोक्ट्रिनेट कर सकते हो,
I love that. I
यू नो।
love that.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole idea, right? So अगर living examples आपको बहुत मिलेंगे। मतलब वो लोग अभी भी, अब if you talk to a person from Indore, you know, if they see you putting your kachra in just one dustbin, they'll just look at you and like, what world are you coming from? मतलब उनको कल्चर शॉक लगता है ऐसे। ऐसा होना चाहिए। अगर हम मेंस्ट्रुअल वेस्ट को ठीक से डिस्पोज नहीं कर रहे हैं, हमें कल्चर शॉक लगना चाहिए कि आप क्यों उसको ठीक से वेस्ट नहीं कर रहे हो। यू नो, माय फ्रेंड यूज्ड टू, my friend was very diligent and I used to, वो ना टेप लगाती थी अपने वो सैनिटरी वेस्ट पैड को वेस्ट डालने से पहले। मैं उसको बोलती थी, यार इतना कौन करता है? then you know I grew up and I realized she was so right to do this, because your waste has to be properly disposed, you know. Nobody has the right to, you know, you can't really put other
Subject
people at
somebody to it.
risk,
Yeah.
you know, for that matter. और वो डॉगी वाला जो, you know, you were talking about, Tanya, such a common occurrence in all the places I've gone to. In fact, हम एग्जाम्पल भी यही देते हैं, बच्चों से बात करते हैं कि अच्छा लगता है जब कोई पैड लेके जाता है डॉगी, आपका अच्छा लगता है देखने में। That is how we encourage them to wrap their pads properly and put them in a closed lid dustbin.
So I
So
think
yes.
menstrual waste disposal is one, a health issue. Second, it's an environmental issue. And third, it is an aesthetic issue. I think all
Yeah.
of these need to be addressed.
Yeah.
The one thing, Rikita, I think you had told me that you need to leave because of a personal
Yes.
emergency.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
I'm going to excuse you at this point.
Thank
If you have
you.
any more comments to make, you can do so now.
No, I think just my last, I think thank you so much, first of all, for organizing a discussion such as this. It's so important. And I hope that people from the policy level, government level are hearing us, because everywhere that I go, NGOs, developmental sector can work only so much. मतलब हम लोगों को CSR funds मिलेंगे, हम 100 स्कूल टारगेट कर लेंगे, 200 कर लेंगे, 300 कर लेंगे। The idea is to have collective efforts, to have large scale efforts. If we want interventions, the best interventions come from a government level. That is what we really need to do. There needs to be a revolution when it comes to menstrual health, menstrual hygiene, and disposal for that matter. It has to be, in fact, menstrual policy, if it's getting made, it is getting made, it needs to cover all aspects. It has to be a wholesome, you know, it has, all dots have to connect with each other. So that's my appeal, that we continue to talk about this, we continue to have these conversations. And it's so important in these conversations to get all genders from the society. It's so important that people, like, even though I have very, very deeply worked in the field, I am still not the best person to represent what is happening on the ground. People from the ground have to be given that space, have to be given that platform, कि वो खुद आके बात करें आपसे, खुद आपको आके बताएं कि दिक्कतें क्या हैं और क्या, और कई बार उनसे इंडिजिनस सॉल्यूशंस भी बहुत अच्छे मिलते हैं. दैट इज आल्सो समथिंग दैट वी नीड टू टेक केयर ऑफ. यू गेट सच अमेजिंग ब्रिलियंट इनोवेटिव सॉल्यूशंस फ्रॉम देम. They need to be, they deserve a place at the table. They need to be brought to the table. All genders need to be brought to the table. They have to talk about this. Only then we'll get somewhere. The great thing is we are getting somewhere. That I must tell you. It's a great thing ki now menstrual health is the it thing to kind of work on. Brilliant. I'm very happy to do that. But now isko pop culture. It has to be pop culture. I'm very happy for it to be a pop culture thing. बिल्कुल, मतलब इसको एकदम सेंटर ऑफ द टेबल पे लेके आओ. इट्स अमेजिंग.
फोरफ्रंट पे अभी तो बिल्कुल
फोरफ्रंट, बिल्कुल इसको पॉप कल्चर बनाओ. एवरी सेलिब्रिटी नीड्स टू बी टॉकिंग अबाउट इट. कोई बात नहीं, कोई अच्छा बोलेगा, कोई बुरा बोलेगा, लेकिन बोलेगा तो सही ना, कम से कम. ऑफ कोर्स, एंड we'll need an army to kind of combat the bad also. But yes, I think it needs to be, first of all, brought to the table. Every representative has to be at the table, and we need to continue these conversations. And I also will say one more thing. I think menstrual health deserves its own SDG. It's a large thing, but it deserves to be a separate focus area. उसको आप wash में और education में डाल के dilute नहीं कर सकते हैं. इसको अपना एक focus area बनाना चाहिए. So, and thank you so much for coming, all of us together. Let's have these conversations and, you know, maybe try to just kind of do whatever we can. So yes,
Thank you so much, Rikita. And it was a great honor and privilege to have
Thank
heard
you,
you
ma'am.
today. And I wish you all the best for the personal emergency. Take good
Thank
care of
you, ma'am.
yourself. So
Thank
we
you.
get back to the discussion, all of us. So Tanya, we were speaking about menstrual waste disposal, and I would like you to put your comments on it.
Honestly, it feels like a big deal now to take the conversation forward from what Rikita has mentioned. Such a dynamic individual who's done so much work. I mean, I also realized one thing that we were talking about, disposal, decomposition. I'd done some field work myself in this tiny tribal district in Madhya Pradesh called Jhabua. And वहाँ पे मैंने कुछ agriculturalists के साथ farmers के मतलब उनके घरों में ही जाके रुकी थी. And I remember asking the women of the house once कि आप करते क्या हो, पैड्स यूज करते हो? कहते हैं हाँ करते हैं. डालते कहाँ हो? डस्टबिन तो नहीं है दीदी, तो बड़ा सा होल खोद देते हैं, उसके अंदर डाल देते हैं. But it's such a big misconception that pads can be decomposed easily. It takes 500 to about 800 years for that kind of plastic to go and get decomposed. And burning it, like Rikita said as well, is in itself a big problem of its own. इतने carcinogens निकलते हैं. And एक और मैंने बहुत ही मैम इंटरेस्टिंग चीज, but at the same time it just breaks my heart to hear that raak ya ash is still being used in a lot of smaller districts, smaller towns, smaller areas of the country, and there is no awareness around this. So these sustainable solutions now that we have menstrual cloths, we have menstrual panties which can be disposed, we have more eco-friendly products, we have tampons. I know for a fact that Dr. Suman and I had talked about the cup and how there is more awareness required around it, because a lot of people say that if early on a woman tries to insert anything into her vagina, that itself is a form of impurity, or it breaks a woman's
Oh,
virginity.
that's a taboo. That you're losing your virginity. Your sacred hymen is destroyed. I mean,
And the kind of ridiculous things. मैंने तो बचपन में सुना था horse riding मत करना, उससे you run the risk of losing your virginity. Now what rubbish.
The hymen has a very sacred place in our culture.
Absolutely. I mean, these things need to be questioned with a big question mark. It's not period end of sentence. It's period and beginning of question mark. That's what it should be.
No, but here is where also the males come in, because ultimately that concept of virginity and that sacredness of the hymen, I think the men need to also get over it. And because otherwise you're always demanding proof of the female's virginity. I mean, what era are we living in today? I think.
Absolutely. I agree.
I think in this context of pad disposal, I have got some statistics here. So according to available data, India generates approximately 12.3 billion sanitary pads annually, which translates to roughly 113,000 tons of menstrual waste per year. I mean, can you imagine? And none of these are biodegradable. Very small, maybe 0.001% of them may be biodegradable. So you can imagine the amount of menstrual waste we are creating. I personally feel, as a gynecologist and as a passionate woman, that menstrual cup is the way to go. I'll tell you my personal experiences. All my years I was using the menstrual pad, the sanitary pad. I switched to the menstrual cup in my 50s. And believe me, it was such a blessing. And I was like, oh God, I wish I knew. I mean, I wish I knew about it, but I did not try it myself. I just had, it's just an inhibition, kuch naya hai to ab karenge, kal kare. I had a lot, 10, 15 years back, somebody had given me a cup in my OPD, you give it to your patients and let's give a demo. And it was lying in some corner and I didn't bother about it. I just forgot about it. I was just busy with life and everything else that goes with it. And when I used the cup, I realized it was such a blessing. I didn't have to change. I didn't have to throw it anywhere. There was no smell. There was no leakage at all. I could figure out in the pad, that small amount of blood spreads across and it feels like so much blood. In the menstrual cup, you realize it was hardly 5 cc or 10 cc. And it's so easy to handle. And when you walk around, there's nothing. In fact, you can even forget that there's a cup inside you. It's so fantastic. And I think we should be promoting it in a really big way. It prevents, I mean, we can really prevent the accumulation of national waste to such a large extent. I think the menstrual cup has to be promoted. As a gynac, as a woman, I think this is really important. I also want to highlight one very important point. The gynecologists are not aware of how to use the cup. That was so surprising. That is really surprising. If you go to a gynecologist, there'll be 1 in 10 who will be able to tell you how to use the cup, because the educators need to be trained themselves first. Because in there, all the gynacs who were, I mean, at least from my generation, none of us knew about the cup. It didn't exist. So you had to learn about it. And it came in just about a decade ago, right? But there are not many campaigns. I have gone about in my own associations trying to teach some of my colleagues. And of course, a lot of gynacs are using the cup now in the current generation, but many of them still don't know about it. So I think there are a lot of gaps in a lot of places, and these need to be addressed. Dr. Mona has something to say on this.
Yeah, so Suman perfectly said, when we are discussing about sanitary pads, and as we have been working and discussing sanitary pads and the tampons, disposable panties and all. So I was also looking through the current data, because what we were started working at 2012, today also, like according to the say AC National, their survey, only 12% of women in India, they have given out of 355 million women, only 12% are using sanitary napkins. And other 88% they are using old fabric, rags, or as she mentioned, still today sand or such thing. I'm still surprised what. And out of that, 70%, the women who is getting the infections are like more or less of they are who has been not been using. But the important thing is 70% of this, all of these women, they are saying they are not using. The awareness is one thing, because they don't have affordability to use even the sanitary pads. So they always say that it has to go cheaper. Now we have started discussing about the disposal. I totally agree on this. This was a big question, because we distribute every year thousands of pads. Ourselves as an organization has been using it. I also, as Khushi mentioned, try to take a survey from the girls. If I switch over to the reusable panties or a pad or something, the girls were not happy. They said, "Ma'am, आप देके जाओगे, हमारे पास पड़ा रहेगा, हम तो use नहीं करेंगे, क्योंकि it's like a same thing. Washing and drying and doing is not feasible in each and every area." So need-based evaluation is very important. Now that again comes to sanitary pads and disposable, especially in this Gujarat interior and all incinerators, we have distributed hundreds of incinerators till now. But again, sustainability. It gets, I have seen in Mumbai schools, even the government, the municipality has donated incinerators in the washroom. I see it's not working. Then nobody is bothered to again call the technician and restart it. And what happens, by mistake, anybody put it apart from any other plastic or any other thing, that packet, then it stops working. So another thing, how to get disposed. Now again, digging up in this, as we know, in this sanitary pad, one thin layer is a plastic which is not degradable. So that is not. I have found out myself about totally 100% biodegradable sanitary pads, but it is not coming. The cost is so high. It is made from banana leaf and all. So that is not possible to distribute on a larger scale. Now, particularly currently, what I'm talking about, the last year when we are distributing, as we have seen, like even in the schools and all in the Gujarat and interior, the teachers are also taking interest, and even the male teachers. So what they did, they created a tank outside the girls' washroom, and then they are putting that, and they are like open tank hai, उसमें वो लोग बर्न कर देते हैं. Again, I agree, but currently, out of all other things, this is the only thing which is feasible, which we are promoting कि आप किधर भी ना गो, because nobody is there to take their disposable. घर पे तो डालने का कोई सवाल ही नहीं है. तो लेके आओ, स्कूल में रखो, और सब लोग इसमें बर्न करके एक साथ टैंक में डालो और डिस्पोज करो. आई एम गेटिंग अ वीडियोस ऑफ देम, दे आर यूजिंग इट. I'm been giving them advice. Make sure there is no emergency. Nobody should get like take care of all that thing. But I think they all feel this is a safe, and this is the only thing they can do it.
So basically, everywhere people are coming up with their own indigenous and ingenious solutions, sort of. Dr. Neha, can you tell us about, since she did mention about infections, that what is the right way to use these menstrual products? You know, the women, many girls, like Kushi said, they don't even know how often to change the pad. Means what care to be taken so that, you know, you protect yourself from infections.
Right. First of all, whenever you're using it or whatever, first of all, wash your hands and then use the product. Whenever you're removing it from the packet as well, please, please, please wash your hands. It's not like just use water. If you have access to soap, please, please do use the soap as well. Then you place it and everything, and please change it every 6 to 8 hours. Be it wherever you are, if you're outside, there are
Even if the flow
restaurants.
is less, even if it's not so.
Yes, yes, irrespective of whatever it is, even if you have even a single spot on it, but please make sure that you change it after 6 to 8 hours. Don't keep it more than 6 to 8 hours, because it is basically you're wrapping it around a panty and it is snugly fitting around your area. So eventually there is no flow, and plus there are people who are wearing jeans or whatever of that sort. There is no flow, there is no airflow or nothing, so it will eventually get unhygienic, and it is not good for your vagina as well, because bacteria will start growing there. So eventually you will have to change it around 6 to 8 hours. Be it a tampon as well, or even your menstrual cup, please remove it and then change it. And even if it's a single dot, as I said, and even while removing, please wash your hands, and while then you can again wash your hands and change the pad or the tampon or the cup.
So
Even
with the
with your
tampon, is there
disposable.
not a, sorry, with the tampon, is there not a bigger risk of it, you know, forgetting it inside? What would
Yes,
happen if
yes,
it would
that
get
is
in?
why, again, even with the menstrual cup, what happens is, as you said, ma'am, that if after 2 or 3 attempts you get used to it, and after that you forget about it. Sometimes even that happens with the menstrual cup, because I have a friend who's been using it and she said, oh shit, I forgot, it was my 4th day and I forgot it's been 24 hours, it's inside me. So please make sure that you at least have the habit of changing it. Make, at least put it an alarm. Everyone has a phone now. So put an alarm in your phone and put a reminder that you do have to change it.
खुशी, आपसे एक पूछना चाहूंगी. खुशी, आप हैं अभी? खुशी, can you hear me? Okay, she doesn't seem to be around at the moment. So Tania, I want to talk to you about this. So basically you heard about
Hello?
disposal. हाँ खुशी, आ गई आप?
हाँ मैम, सॉरी एक्चुअली म्यूट किया था, बोलिए.
कोई बात नहीं. तो खुशी, मुझे आपसे ये पूछना था कि ये हम लोग डिस्कस कर रहे थे कि डिफरेंट मेंस्ट्रुअल प्रोडक्ट्स हम यूज करते हैं. कोई सैनिटरी नैपकिन, कोई कप यूज करता है. आपको मेंस्ट्रुअल कप के बारे में पता था?
एक्चुअली मैम मुझे पहले नहीं पता था, बट मैंने अभी 2-3 बार रील्स देखा, तो मेरी एक फ्रेंड थी, उसने ट्राई किया था 1-2 बार. उसको
Okay.
मतलब बहुत मतलब इच्छा थी उसको कि मैं एक बार यूज करके देखूं. उसने एक बार यूज किया, बट उसको अनकंफर्टेबल लगा, तो उसको रिटर्न पैड ही यूज कर रही थी. एक ही बार उसने यूज किया था वो.
ओके, तो कप को तो यूज करने के लिए थोड़ा सीखना पड़ता है, थोड़ा सा कभी किसी किसी को थोड़ा वक्त लगता है,
हाँ.
बट एक बार अच्छा यूज होता है तो अच्छा लगता है. आई थिंक आपने कभी
हम्म.
सोचा कि आप यूज कर सकती हैं? आप वजाइना के अंदर हाथ डाल के कप डालेंगे, आपको वो कंफर्टेबल लगता है? वो आइडिया उस आप कर पाएंगी, ऐसा लगता है आपको?
एक्चुअली नहीं, मैंने स्टार्टिंग से पैड यूज किया है, तो मुझे उसका कुछ आइडिया नहीं था, बट मैं एक बार चाहती हूँ मैं एक बार ट्राई करूँ.
ओके. आपकी मम्मी को कोई एतराज नहीं होगा वजाइना के अंदर कुछ डालोगे उंगली?
आइडिया आई थिंक नो आइडिया मैम, बट एक बार मैं सोच रही थी, मेरे फ्रेंड ने एक्चुअली ट्राई किया था उसको, तो उसको
जी.
आज कंफर्टेबल बिल्कुल नहीं लगा. तो बोली कि क्योंकि वो हमेशा पैड ही यूज करती है ना, राइट, तो
ओके.
इस वो कंफर्टेबल नहीं लगा, तो मुझे उसको देख के मुझे लगा कि वो मैं ट्राई करके देखूँ क्या, बट देन ये नहीं.
हाँ, आप आइए, हम आपको जरूर सिखाएंगे कैसे यूज करना है.
एक बार मुझे ट्राई करना है, बट
वेरी गुड. अच्छा, मुझे ये बताइए, आपको पता है ये जो पैड आप यूज करते हैं इसको कितनी कितनी देर पे आप चेंज करते हो?
उसको तो मैम मैं एक्चुअली मॉर्निंग में लगाती हूँ, तो 5-6 तक मैं चेंज करके सेकंड यूज करती हूँ.
मतलब शाम को 5-6 बजे आप चेंज करती हैं
चेंज कर लेती हूँ.
और फिर रात में फिर करती है?
हाँ मैम, रात में तो ऑलवेज चेंज करती
तो
चेंज.
दिन में 3 बार आप चेंज करती है वैसे भी?
हाँ.
ओके.
कभी कभी मैंने तो ब्लडिंग के ऊपर भी होता है ना मैम, अगर बहुत ज्यादा ब्लडिंग होता है तो हम चेंज करना ही पड़ता है, बार बार 3 बार 4 बार चेंज करना पड़ता है. बट ब्लडिंग नहीं, ऑलमोस्ट नहीं होता उतना, तो हम सिर्फ 2-3 बार ही चेंज करते हैं मुश्किल से.
तो आपको दिक्कतें क्या होती है? अगर आप ये इस पैनल को कहना चाहेंगी कि एज एन एंड यूजर आपको कुछ दिक्कतें हो रही हैं, आपको कौन सा टाइप का प्रोडक्ट चाहिए होगा? आपको क्या चाहिए होगा पीरियड्स के बारे में जो इम्प्रूव होना चाहिए हमारे देश में? जो आपको जो पीरियड आ रहा है, आप एक औरत हैं जिनको पीरियड्स आते हैं, तो आपके लिए क्या बदलाव आना चाहिए तो आपको पीरियड्स थोड़े और अच्छे, मतलब कंफर्टेबल और अच्छा
एक्चुअली
लगेगा?
पैड के अलग अलग ब्रांड्स होते हैं, अगर हम कभी कुछ अलग ट्राई करते हैं ना, तो इससे थोड़ा इचिंग होता है.
ओके.
हाँ हिचिंग होता है ऐसे, मतलब कुछ कुछ पैड्स होते हैं ना बहुत ऐसे मतलब ब्रॉड होते हैं, जो कंफर्टेबल नहीं होता लेने के लिए गर्ल्स को ऑलमोस्ट, क्योंकि जीन्स वगैरह पहनते हैं तो उनको कैरी करना प्रॉपर नहीं होता, कंफर्टेबल नहीं होते वो।
Okay.
तो ऐसा चाहिए मतलब कंफर्टेबल हो, सॉफ्ट हो इजीली, और मतलब वो कर सके एडजस्ट हो रहा है ऐसा।
Okay.
हम्म।
Okay. Tanya, I think now we are nearing the end of the discussion. So let's have some closing comments or anything which you would like to add to the discussion. Tanya, anything from you?
Sure, ma'am. I think I'll just take a cue from what Khushi said, and we'll also sort of wrap it up. It's been such an engaging discussion so far. One thing I also realized, like she said, कितने सारे brands आ गए हैं. I mean, nowadays there's a lot of chatter around कि ये brand use करें, Whisper or versus a Sani Free or a Stay Free, right? I feel like doctors can comment a little better on कौन से brands might, because honestly, end of the day, it's CSR. It's also just a campaign. A lot of Unilever had done something कि एक रुपए का वो coin डालो and then pads distribute करो. But more than that, I think it's high time that we celebrate more indigenous practices and people coming up with newer practices. The fact that these eco-friendly products that we talk about, there is so much requirement for social entrepreneurs or people with new ideas to come and engage in this sector. There is so much that can be done in terms of the reusability, in terms of accessibility towards pads, in terms of disposal nonetheless. Because एक pad को खरीदना या एक पूरे packet को खरीदना is not very easy on the pocket for every strata of society. We say it, but there are at the end of the day many people who struggle to even purchase one single packet of those XL wing wale pads, right? So maybe having a little more affordability in this matter, it's extremely high time. And I think as just a closing comment, what I'd just like to say is that the fact that there is mainstream attention now being given to periods, I'm not going to deny that. But the fact that we need more grassroots voices, more people to be face ambassadors of this program from the grassroots. The fact that Padman itself was on Murungatham's entire story. Twinkle Khanna writes it in her book too, right? She identified the man and then her husband went about to make such a fantastic movie. I want more influencers, but I want them to be from the ground. I want more girls to come and talk about this and not, hush hush about it. Whisper na bolo isko. Hush hush mat banao isko. Make this a topic that is really not taboo anymore. So yeah.
Like that. Since you brought up the topic of cost, खुशी आपसे एक बात पूछना चाहूंगी. आप पैड्स यूज करते हो है ना? हेलो खुशी? Okay, we've lost her again. Dr. Neha, let's come to this point called anemia, because anemia is very closely related to periods. Somebody just put up on the chat, Lakshmi, thank you for that, that anemia is very closely related to periods. So as a gynecologist, what are we doing as gynecologists? What are we doing to address the issue of menstrual blood loss every month during this cycle?
Right. So what I basically feel is that many people don't know what is normal or what is abnormal. They just feel, okay, I'm getting periods. Itna bleeding to hone hi wala hai. It's okay. Bhale, whatever I'm facing, if I'm feeling weak or anything, no, it's a part of periods. So this is going to happen to me. So I'm okay. Every month of this happens. Be it sometimes, as we see in our OPDs also, that beyond 40, they're like, nahi, humko pata hai, abhi to upar niche hone wala hai. So even if it's happening like every 15 or every 10 or 12 days also, they say, no, it's fine. And they don't come to you.
जाने का time है तो ऐसा होता है.
Yes, exactly. And they happen to come to you after 4 or 5 years and then when you do the hemoglobin levels, more or less in India in general, we have less than 10 or something. And when they come to you, it's around 7 or 8. So, and that is why they still feel that it's normal. So I feel that we in general should educate the population in itself that normal cycles kya hai, abnormal kya hai, and when should you actually go to the gynae. That if your flow was less initially, if it has increased, or if it is actually causing you any day-to-day activity may any problems, then you please come to a doctor and please show the doctor.
So basically more education on what are periods, how much should be the periods, how much should you bleed, all these should be there. So normal periods should be, usually last between 2 to 8 days. That much is normal. You get your cycle everywhere, say from 25 to 35 days, that's the average. But it can last from anywhere from 21 to 35 days, that is normal. Okay. If you have a blood loss of more than 80 ml per cycle, now that's very difficult to say. With pads, you can say something like on the heavy flow days, second and third day, you should not be having to use more than 4 pads a day. So if that you're using that much is normal. So that's roughly, but if this is your pattern and you suddenly start bleeding more than that, then that is some reason to meet the doctor. If you're bleeding more often, it could, especially after the age of 40, if you have heavy periods, please meet your doctor, because you have something known as endometrial hyperplasia, which may sometimes lead to endometrial cancer. So that is why you cannot ignore heavy bleeding around menopause just because you feel it is time to get your menopause. Okay, I was wanting to talk about the cost of pads. Is Khushi there now? Khushi, aap hain abhi? Okay, so see, cost is definitely
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ, खुशी, तो मुझे ये बताइए, आप पैड्स यूज करते हो तो उसका खर्चा कितना आता है महीने का आपको?
एक्चुअली मैं मंथली का, मैं अभी 49 का 50 का छोटा वाला पैकेट आता है विस्पर का,
हाँ,
ऑरेंज वाला, तो मैं वही यूज करती हूँ मंथली में। मंथली में मुझे एक पैकेट तो पूरा होता ही है।
तो मतलब 50 रुपए महीने का आपको खर्चा आता है।
यस मैम।
आपको कभी एलर्जी होती है पैड की, खुजली वुजली आती है उसकी वजह से?
हाँ, कभी कभी मैं थोड़ा लॉन्ग टाइम तक एक्स्ट्रा रखती हूँ ना, तो बहुत ज्यादा इचिंग होता है मुझे।
ओके,
अनदर कि मैं स्टार्टिंग से वही यूज कर रही हूँ ना, तो उतना कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है उसके अंदर।
Okay. I have seen a lot of patients complain of allergy with those branded pads which have got those special what is it called? Anti-dry weave sheet. So with those sheets, I have seen a lot of people get allergies. I myself used to get allergy with that. I switched to the cup and that was such a blessing. But allergies do happen a lot. So I think since you asked me which brands patients should choose, it should preferably be pure cotton. Okay, without any of those add-ons. We don't want those anti-deodorant and those chemicals added and those dry weave sheets and all, which are going to be causing irritation and contact dermatitis for the patients. The simplest possible options, use either the cup or you use the cotton-based pads. That would be the best. Of course, you can change as often as possible, like Dr. Neha has already told. Dr. Mona Shah, for your closing comments, please.
Suman, what I have been thinking is like women's health in India was always a secondary, being it in urban or a rural. Women themselves has to start talking about it. Being it's a menstrual cycle or the menstrual is the secondary thing, but otherwise also always out of everything, if you think in a family of 4, if everybody is ill and the mother is also ill or a girl, that priority will come always last when that's the mental status. That's sad. That has been, I think, engraved in us as a young child or everything. The secondary is
but the mother herself is going to put herself last. That is another issue.
So standardized, like we all being in a medical or a paramedical field, I said, whenever we see patients, it's been extreme. If the husband is having any kind of problem, the wife is always there to accompany and to take care. Agar unko ye hoga, like always, it's still a thing that he's the breadwinner and he has to be taken care first. Hum log to kya hai, baithe rahenge, saath mein rahenge. So starting from that, changing the lifestyle, PCOD, it's absolutely in connection with, as you said, menstrual health, hygiene. So these things, again, that is a topic which needs to be discussed. It is, and the more and more the women has to advocate themselves for their need and for their daughter's need or a sister's need. In fact, I feel the boys, if we are not talking about it, how we expect others or a male members to come and talk about it? How many women even talk to their husbands about this, or a sister talk to their brothers about it? Because it's not a family discussion ever. So I think each and everywhere, as we mentioned, the awareness needs to be created. And when we are talking about particularly about menstrual health, hygiene, and disposable, it has to go simultaneously. And then when we started talking about it, we have to create awareness, and the disposal policies has to come from a government. So I think there is lot more can be done. And thank you so much for raising such an important topic, and we have to keep talking about it. This cannot be a full stop. It has to continue. Dr.
Dr. Neha, would you like to make a comment?
At the end of the day, I just feel that even today, as Dr. Muna said, that we cannot talk about it in the family. If you, for example, if I also tell my cousin or someone to go and get me a sanitary pad, and he'll immediately, the reaction would be, I'm not going to go get it. So if first of all you have to ask, and majority of the women will not ask, and second is the men, as Dr. Mona really rightly said.
Yeah, and the pharmacy wala will also wrap it in a paper
Black
and give it to you.
paper
not
and
give
the
it-
black theli.
We know that so well. So I've been reading some of the comments which have been coming in the chat box section, and some of the uh, audience have been volunteers. They are doing CSR activists as well. Some are from NGOs, and they have one of them has actually asked that what could we do as an NGO? We have got people, we have got the workforce. Please tell us how we can help out and how we can volunteer towards this activity. So, Dr. Mona, what do you think? What would you want to say to them? क्या करना चाहिए आपके लिए उन्होंने? There you lead them and tell them what to do.
So again, it comes to the solution is always a need based. As we discussed, we have to provide them solution to the according to the need of the beneficiaries, whether they have an arrangement of a water where they can wash it out, whether they can dry it, whether they have a disposable dustbins where they can put their sanitary pads. Are there culturally they are open for tampons or a menstrual cups if they are okay? And for the menstrual cups, I definitely feel, and Suman, as the I feel the Women's Day is coming so close in the March month, it has to start from, we have two doctors, it has to start from medical and paramedical fraternity. They themselves start using and promoting this, that menstrual cups is the best thing if we can do it. Otherwise, it's always like that. We have very good vendors who, for the sanitary pads, who gives them a very minimum cost. Like we have been distributing that the cost of a yearly supply of a sanitary pads, what we are getting is not more than 220 rupees.
Oh, that's but good quality ones.
It's not very good branded quality, and this is not even a Starbucks coffee. With this, we can give them such a good thing with a proper guidance on disposal. I'm here always to help everybody on that, but disposal and the proper usage need to be addressed always when we are talking about the sanitary pads.
So I
Otherwise,
think to all the audience here also who have asked these questions, I think through the platform of RISE, you could connect with the admins and they could put you in touch with all these people who are working at the grassroots levels. Even Dr. Neha and I, we are gynecologists. We are willing to join in any kind of mass education programs. You can tell us, we can definitely join you. We'll educate the women alongside them, and they will, of course, lead the way. So I think I have to now thank the RISE platform for giving us this wonderful opportunity. I'm really happy with the discussion we had, the kind of inputs I got. It was some of them were real eye openers, and to see that some people have done so much work. I mean, I'm really proud of you, Dr. Mona and Tanya, and means what kind of fantastic work you're doing out there. I mean, it's really needed, and thank you, RISE, and Naresh. I think you need to take it on from here now.
Oh, well, what should I say? Actually, a man shouldn't be having the last word in this this discussion. I think you ladies have been absolutely amazing. I'm sorry I had to move to another session and come back again, but the level of discussion that has happened here in this this forum is brilliant, and I think the engagement that the audience has had in terms of the questions and the comments just goes to show how critical this topic was. I mean, we kind of put this together literally in 2 days, if you really go to say. I'm so glad we did that. And thank you so much for all of you for just agreeing to come on board at almost the last minute. And Suman, brilliant job as always moderating. I think what has begun out here is, is a very, very honest and frank discussion about the issue itself and also the solutions and the kind of efforts that are being made in that regard. And I think we'll just continue that. I think the RISE family will be happy to take this on, to support your efforts and really, take it to the extent that we want India to go. Like you said, there's no need for taboo. There's no need to hide this extremely critical, extremely natural phenomenon. And we men also have to do our part. I mean, absolutely, Dr. Neha, you're right. Get the men involved, and I think we are going there. But it may take some time, but we'll go there. I think Shilpa has, let Shilpa have the last word. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Brilliant, brilliant session. And I'm sure, this will be, the recording of this will be on the platform. So I'm sure you please do direct people to come. And those who missed coming on the live session can always go there and actually watch this, because I think this is going to be a great learning for many. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank
Shilpa,
you,
all
Naresh and
Thank
Shilpa, on
you.
behalf of all the panelists.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that a couple of people had some questions. So
Okay.
if we have time, then can we
Yeah, we do
address
have the
them?
time.
Mukta had raised her hand earlier. Anybody has any question, please raise your hand and unmute yourself and you can ask. You can interact with the panelist.
Yeah, Mukta, are you there still? Mukta had raised her hand.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
I actually only wanted to, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to.
Yeah, you can make a comment as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about, as Dr. Bijlani and Dr. Mona Shah have mentioned that only 70%, less than, sorry, 30% of women are being able to use the sanitary products. So I work with tribal and rural women here in Madhya Pradesh, and I only wanted to share a optimism and hope for all of you that here we see that people are used to use cloth pads or even worse things like sand or stuff. So after we introduced menstrual cups, it's been like a while since we are conducting trainings with them or having conversations with them. But we have come to know that once people know how to use it, once people are made comfortable about their bodies and about the physiology of behind menstruation, people are extremely comfortable to use menstrual cups. So we work with people that go for daily wages and for farm on their farm on daily basis. So they do not, as you know, our rural landscape, they do not really get a space to change their pads, or they do not really get a space to, even dry out their clothes. So while using menstrual cups, people have just been like extremely happy to know that they have skipped um, a step, to be honest, like from clothes to pads to cups. People go usually like that, but there are a lot of women who have just switched from cotton cloths to directly menstrual cups. So that's a very huge achievement, and I just wanted to share a very good optimism that there is a huge hope, and once if we turn out to be good educators and good trainers, women are just very happy to be using menstrual cups.
That's
And
so
they're
heartening, Mukta, what you just told us. That's so heartening. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. Congratulations
thank
on
you.
doing that great job.
Thanks.
Shilpa,
Yeah,
anybody else?
anybody else want to share? We have our member CACR. They are actively working on this, point. So if Lakshmi wants to share anything, Lakshmi, or there was another participant who asked in the chat box that, can I ask a question?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was
Hello,
Satyavan.
Lakshmi.
Please
He's
put them
not
on.
there. Yeah,
Mr.
you are audible.
Satyavan is not there?
No, he's not there.
He's not there.
I can see Lakshmi there. She's
Yeah.
on, right?
Hello,
यस
Lakshmi.
यस मोना मैम ने बहुत अच्छे तरीके से बातें हमको बताई थी स्टैटिस्टिक वगैरह करके। मुझे एक पूछना था कि हम मेंस्ट्रुअल कप बोल रहे हैं यूज करने के लिए, लेकिन अगर हम स्कूल में सेशंस ले रहे हैं तो स्कूल में हम क्या ज्यादातर बोल सकते हैं, क्योंकि हम ये प्रमोट करते हैं कि क्लोथ पैड के लिए, तो इसलिए थोड़ा सा जानने का था स्कूल में हम क्या बोल सकते हैं करने के
स्कूल
लिए।
में प्रॉब्लम क्या होता है ना कि बच्चे छोटे होते हैं और जो माँ बाप होते हैं
हाँ
उनको वजाइना के अंदर हाथ नहीं डालना है, हाइमन टूट जाएगा,
यस
इसका डर रहता है। तो ये माँ बाप की परमिशन के बिना हम आई थिंक स्कूल में इस समय तो हम कप्स प्रमोट नहीं कर सकते। कम से कम
यस
तो कॉलेज लेवल तक थोड़ा एडल्ट माइंडसेट होता है लड़की का, वो खुद के लिए सोच सकती है, तब हम वो कप प्रमोट कर सकते हैं। उसके पहले आई हैव सीन, मेरे पास कुछ माँ बाप आते हैं, माँ आती है कि भाई मेरी बेटी 13 साल की है, उसको कप यूज करवाना चाहती हूँ मैं क्योंकि वो कंफर्टेबल रहे मेरी बच्ची। ऐसे मेरी बिल्डिंग में भी है जिनको मैंने कप दिया है, तो उनको छोटा कप मैंने दिया है, लेकिन बिना माँ बाप के इजाजत के। और स्कूल्स में तो स्पेशली अपने को पता भी नहीं किसके माँ बाप क्या सोचते हैं। स्कूल में आई थिंक अभी तक फिलहाल तो हम पैड्स पे रहे। तो व्हाट से अदर्स?
Yeah, I agree. School mein we should not intervene for this, because menstrual cup usage, as the doctors say, it needs practice and training. So first of
बट
all,
उनको हम बता सकते हैं कि आप बड़े होंगे तो ये आप स्विच कर सकते हैं ताकि उनके माइंड में वो बैरियर हट जाए. आई थिंक वी शुड एटलीस्ट स्टार्ट मेकिंग देम अवेयर. आई फील
we can make them aware and we can ask them to they can ask their mothers to use it.
that's a good idea. That's
Because
nice.
क्योंकि
yeah,
कभी-कभी मैम
very important.
सेशन
If the
में
mothers will be using in future, the daughters will be using.
Absolutely. The once she realizes how comfortable it is, she's going to advocate it for her
So
daughter.
in fact, when we have this kind of thing, we try and encourage get their mothers for the discussion. It's not only
Fantastic.
for the menstrual cups, but even for health, eating well, hygiene, and as we address anemia and all, it's good to know mothers should be around. That's a good thing.
तो लक्ष्मी जी नेक्स्ट टाइम आप करेंगे मीटिंग, आप उनके मदर्स को भी इनवाइट कर
Mothers
सकते
को
हैं
बुला.
और उनको भी
मैम
एजुकेट कीजिए.
हम ना स्कूल में तो सेशन लेते ही है, लेकिन स्कूल में लड़कियों के साथ सेशन लेने के बाद पेरेंट्स मीटिंग भी हम बुलाते हैं. तो
हाँ, बस.
पेरेंट्स मीटिंग में मदर एज वेल एज फादर वो दोनों प्रेजेंट
Good.
रहते हैं.
वेरी गुड फादर.
दोनों
वेरी
को हम
नाइस.
जो भी हमने जानकारी दी है तो ऐसी जानकारी हम दे रहे हैं तो ये पेरेंट्स को भी हम अवेयर करते हैं.
हाँ, तो
In fact,
mothers से
ma'am, I had one point, Dr. Suman
Yes.
को भी यही बताना था. I discussed this earlier. लक्ष्मी जी, एक ना हम एक्टिविटी करवाते थे, वर्कशॉप करवाते थे लड़कियों के साथ, as you know, CSR professionals. हम ना एक पीरियड बिंगो करवाते थे. आपने तंबोला की टिकट देखी है कभी? तंबोला की टिकट में नंबर लिखे होते हैं. तो ऐसे ना 6-6 के 3x3 के ना बॉक्सेस बनाते थे. और जैसे हमने शुरुआत में जब बात भी की थी और खुशी ने भी आके बताया था कि नहीं बाल नहीं धो सकते हैं, टेम्पल नहीं एंटर कर सकते हैं, व्हाट आर द डूज एंड द डोंट्स. तो वो समझाने के लिए ना जस्ट फ्रॉम द अवेयरनेस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू इतनी हेल्प होती थी मैम. और सारी लड़कियां इतना फटाफट रिस्पॉन्ड करके आके बताती थी, नहीं दीदी ये नहीं करना है, हाँ दीदी ये करना है. तो वो चेक्स एंड चेक नॉट्स वो आके सब दिखाती थी. तो ये एक्टिविटी बहुत मतलब इट हेल्प्ड अस आल्सो. तो ये मैं सोच रही थी
हम
दिस
बलून्स की एक्टिविटी करते हैं मैम.
अच्छा.
मिट्स रहते हैं ना वो
हाँ.
सारी चिट्ठी के अंदर डालते हैं. ऑल सेशन में हम सारी जानकारी देते हैं, लेकिन
Lovely.
आफ्टर द एंड सेशन हमारा मिट्स का रहता है तो
हाँ.
उसमें चिट्स डालते हैं बलून्स के अंदर
हाँ.
और वो फोड़ देते हैं.
फोड़ते
तो
हैं.
ये हमारा मिट्स से है वो फूट गया है
वेरी
ऐसे
नाइस.
हम समझाते हैं.
दैट्स नाइस मैम. बहुत बढ़िया.
Very
Good to know.
This
We
is
have Ravi Goyal who has his hand up. Ravi ji, you would like to say something?
Let me introduce him.
हाँ
He is managing Britannia Nutrition Foundation's nutrition project in Madhya Pradesh, Shivpuri district. Ravi ji, you
सभी
can.
को नमस्कार. थैंक यू शिल्पा जी कि मुझे आपने इनवाइट किया इतना इम्पोर्टेंट सेशन में पार्टिसिपेट करने के लिए. हम लोग 100 विलेजेस में भी काम कर रहे हैं. शिवपुरी और श्योपुर बहुत ट्राइबल एरिया है मैक्सिमम. तो हम लोग स्कूलों में भी सेशन लेते हैं और आंगनबाड़ी सेंटर में भी हम लोग बात करते हैं MHM को लेकर. बट अभी क्या है ना जो प्रोडक्ट हैं जैसे हम लोग सभी प्रोडक्ट वहाँ गाँव में भी अवेलेबल नहीं हैं. सैनिटरी पैड का भी अगर मैं बात करूँ तो वो भी 20% मिलते हैं. बाकी लड़कियां कपड़ा ही यूज़ कर रही हैं मैक्सिमम. वो तो कपड़ा भी हाइजीन नहीं है, मतलब कपड़े का जो यूज़ कर रहे हैं. तो हम लोग थोड़ा सा गवर्नमेंट से बात करके हेल्थ डिपार्टमेंट उनको थोड़ा सा दिलाने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं. बट उसका जो डिस्पोजल है जो इंसिनेटर लगा रहता है तो वो 2-3 जगह ही लगे हुए हैं स्कूलों में, बाकी कहीं भी नहीं है गाँव में. तो लड़कियाँ कहीं भी फेंक देती हैं. तो वो एक बड़ा मुद्दा मतलब मैंने ऑब्जर्व किया हमारी फील्ड पर जो देखने में आया कि जो सैनिटरी पैड का यूज़ कर रहे हैं, गंदा कपड़ा यूज़ कर रहे हैं, तो उसका मतलब डिस्पोजल नहीं हो पा रहा है प्रॉपरली और वो एनवायरनमेंट के लिए बिल्कुल भी सेफ नहीं है. तो इसी रिगार्डिंग मुझे अगर आप थोड़ा गाइड कर पाए.
Dr. John Sirkar has put up a comment. A sanitary startup can place collection boxes in every institution, housing society, collect them monthly and dispose of scientifically and eco-friendly in an eco-friendly manner. So maybe one of the NGOs can take this up, putting up boxes, or maybe we could have a government collab and we could encourage them to do that. So I think that will lead some effort on a large scale. Naresh, any thoughts on the matter?
Yes, Suman, I want to say the same thing, like as he is talking about, because anything new will take time, and this is something which can wait. So when they are doing it, the ideal thing is to address and educate the school girls, because in that environment they are receptive, and then have an environment, as I mentioned, in the interior of Gujarat, what we are doing it, the teachers have made a place. As of now, it's a temporary, because incinerators are also not that cheap. 20,000 on incinerators, how many? And then if they're not taking good care, it's going to get
It's a waste.
it's a waste of money. It's lying so many everywhere. So to get a nice concrete सीमेंट कंक्रीट का टैंक बनाया है, उसमें डालते हैं और देर उसको डिस्पोज कर देते हैं. Because it's a big school, like they are disposing it safely. Obviously, the safety factors has to be discussed and taken care by elders. But I think for what I can experience from my source, this is the immediate solution till government is not coming up with something solid or concrete.
So I just wanted to share a bit from, actually, this is not my area of expertise directly, but in the 90s, I was working on solid waste management. And, it's very interesting what Lakshmiji shared, because when we started talking about segregation of waste, dry and wet, and keeping garbage separately, we had the same issue. We had a blockage whenever we kind of did these sessions with adults. The general reaction was, oh, that's the municipal corporation's responsibility, and they should be taking care of it. And it was like hitting a wall every time. One fine day, we decided to do these sessions with kids in schools, and kids responded very differently. It's like the adults were responding from the head, the kids responded from the heart, because we used to show them slides of the plight of the workers on the sanitation workers and the scavengers, so to say, waste pickers on the Devnar dumping ground, as you know, which is the biggest in Asia. And they said, we throw our waste out and these people suffer for it. So this was the connection we got. And then we realized that's the way to go. And then we kind of worked with 15 schools in the Bandra Car Santa Cruz area for a number of years. We had them. And, the biggest kind of epiphany for us was when parents called us and told us, we didn't know we were doing something wrong till my child came and told me. That this was it. And this was such an amazing experience. So what Lakshmiji was saying, I said, that's a germ of a great idea. In terms of, instead of having women parents accompanying them, why can't NGOs actually say, this is a session we're doing for the mothers, only for the mothers. We don't even want the fathers there. We don't want the kids out there. Get the mothers educated. Maybe it will percolate to the kids. Because like I think Dr. Mona pointed out, it's like women are just kind of conditioned to put themselves last, and the husband's needs and all are put front. But now here's, this is only for you. You are the main focus out here. We want you to be healthy. We want you to follow these practices. So perhaps that can literally help us go. Of course, it's a big thing. Now, where again the incineration issue comes in, and I know this was the case even with the medical waste, where we were working on that in the 90s. And incinerators are extremely dangerous. Incinerators are dangerous, as you said, carcinogens are a natural byproduct whenever you incinerate. And I remember Tata Memorial Hospital, actually, they were at the forefront in the 90s, actually putting a hydroclave in the system. Said we are not promoting incinerators. We want to use a hydroclave or an autoclave or a hydroclave. Technically, I'm not very sure what it was, because they said that's the safest way that we have to dispose of medical waste. So even this, I mean, talking about having a kind of a receptacle and, collecting it in 1 month, I'm not too sure even that's very safe. If you're talking about a collection system, it has to be the same way like you have a BMC truck in Mumbai coming every day and collecting it. It should be as regular as that, because you cannot afford to take a chance with, medical waste of any kind. So that needs a little thinking. But is it impractical? No, it's not. The only thing is, can we get people to start segregating in the first place? It's not happening even today. After 2 or 3 decades of trying to get people to do that, people find easy shortcuts out of it. But once you get people to start doing that, then you can talk about the disposal solutions. Otherwise, as long as everything gets...
I think till then, I think a very vigorous promotion of the menstrual cup would be definitely on the cards. So. That makes sense. So. Satyavan ji had some question to ask. There is Satyavan Dhumal ji. Shilpa, could you put him on?
Yeah.
I think we tried to get him.
He's the one who asked in the chat box that he wanted to ask the question.
Yeah, but he's not there
now. Yeah.
He's not there.
No.
Dr. Sirkar is the one. Dr. Sirkar, are you still there? Would you like to, Dr. John Sirkar? Would you like to say something?
He's there.
Okay, I moved away. Shilpa, have we covered all the questions on the chat?
More or less.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, madam.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Yes, who's talking?
मैं विनोद बात कर रहा हूँ, मैं बोल सकता हूँ सर?
Yeah, please go ahead.
एक्चुअली मैं थोड़ा लेट ज्वाइन हुआ था, तो मैं खाली ये पूछना चाहता था, मैं ट्राइबल एरियाज में काम करता हूँ, वहां पर ज्यादातर महिलाएं कपड़े का पैड यूज करती है, क्या उन्हें वो यूज करना चाहिए? अगर क्योंकि वो तो बेयर नहीं कर सकती अपना जो सैनिटरी पैड वगैरह है, तो फिर हमें उन्हें क्या बताना पड़ेगा, खासकर कपड़े के पैड के लिए?
ये तानिया is going to answer this. Tania, are you there?
टेस्टिंग विनोद जी, एक बारी मुझसे फिर से पूछिए, आपने बोला कि कपड़े का पैड, व्हाट डिड यू से?
नहीं मैडम, हाँ
हाँ।
एक्चुअली हम स्कूल में लेक्चर लेते तो
हाँ।
सिटी में हम बता सकते हैं सैनिटरी पैड के बारे में, पूरा इन्फॉर्मेशन उन्हें रहता है। लेकिन
बिल्कुल।
हम जब ट्राइबल एरियाज में जाते हैं तो
हाँ।
वो बहुत ही यानी कि बैक क्लास से रहते हैं, तो
बिल्कुल।
वहां पर वो यूज करते हैं तो कपड़े का पैड यूज करते हैं। लेकिन कई एनजीओ अभी ये भी उन्हें सिखाती है कि कपड़े का भी पैड कैसे सीन यानी कि स्टिच करना चाहिए या कैसे उसका ये करना चाहिए। तो क्या उन्हें वो सिखाना चाहिए या नहीं सिखाना चाहिए हम?
तो एक चीज है विनोद जी, क्लिनिकली जैसा आई थिंक डॉक्टर नेहा ने भी बोला था, यस इन्फेक्शंस होते हैं, पर एक तरीका होता है उस कपड़े को भी यूज करने का। मेनी अ टाइम्स उनके लिए अफोर्डेबल भी नहीं होता है, या उनको पैसे खर्च भी नहीं कर पाते। वो 40 रुपए जैसी अर्थव्यवस्था होती ही नहीं है उनके घरों में टू इवन स्पेंड दैट काइंड ऑफ अ मनी टू गो एंड गेट अ पैड, सिंगल पैड। तो उस केस में क्या ऑप्शन बचता है? एक पैड की जगह एक कपड़ा जो ये औरतें इस्तेमाल करती है, बट उसको धोना, उसको रेगुलरली वॉश करना और हाइजीन मेंटेन करना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। एक और चीज जो मैंने फील्ड पे सीखी थी और हमने एक चीज इम्प्लीमेंट भी की थी कि बहुत बारी जब औरतें जब पेट से होती हैं या प्रेग्नेंट औरतें होती हैं, उनके लिए ना खाना अलग से बनता है, खाना अलग बर्तनों में बनता है, और मेनी अ टाइम्स उनकी जो दाल होती है उसमें तेल नहीं जाता है। जैसे छोटे छोटे इंस्टेंसेस लाइक दीज, यही चीजें अगर ये वर्कशॉप्स जो आप जैसे बता रहे हैं, इनके दौरान अगर आप ये मेंशन करें कि ये जो अदरनेस होती है ऑफ treating women differently during their periods, during their pregnancy, if they can be more inclusion around this, और यही workshops के time eating habits, dietary practices, menstrual hygiene practices, सबकी अगर बात खुले में हो सके, स्पेशली स्कूल्स और कॉलेजेस में, ये बहुत नीड ऑफ द आवर है।
ओके मैडम, ओके ओके, थैंक यू मैम।
I think,
Seema ji. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, did you have someone else?
लक्ष्मी जी, CSA।
Okay.
हाँ, जैसे कि अभी सवाल पूछा था कि और तानिया मैम ने भी बहुत अच्छा आंसर दिया। हम यहाँ पे ज्यादातर प्रमोट करते हैं कि हाइजीन मेंटेन कैसे रखना है, वो भी उन्होंने बताया, लेकिन क्लीनलीनेस वो भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। अगर गाँव है तो छोटी छोटी चिट्टी भी अगर कपड़े में घुस गई तो वो डायरेक्टली अपने प्राइवेट पार्ट में जा सकती है। तो एकदम डिटेल अगर हम उनको जानकारी देते हैं ना, तो वो कपड़ा भी बहुत अच्छी तरीके से संभाल सकती है। तो ये वहां पे हमको ज्यादातर अवेयरनेस करना पड़ेगा विलेज लेवल पे।
विनोद जी, क्या मैं पूछ सकती हूँ आप कौन से जिले से हैं महाराष्ट्र से?
नाशिक।
नाशिक मधनं आहात तुम्ही। एक गडचिरोलीमध्ये एक चांगली संस्था आहे जी काम करते आणि जी ऑनलाईन सेशन्स पण घेते। जर तिकडे तसे त्यांचे व्हॉलेंटियर्स असतील, ते म्हणजे MHM साठी, मेन्स्ट्रुअल हायजीन मॅनेजमेंट साठी ते दरवर्षी 2 फ्री ट्रेनिंग घेतात आणि ते
समाज बंधना?
अशी लोक तयार करतात, तर ते लोक त्यांच्यासोबत कनेक्ट करू शकता तुम्ही।
नाही,
येस।
मी ऍक्च्युली समाज बंध हा माझ्या मित्राचीच आहे, सचिनची.
सचिनची।
हा
सो
हा.
आपण कनेक्ट करू शकतो। येस।
नाही, मला फक्त एक प्रश्न असा होता की आपण समाज बंद कडून आता ते सॅनिटरी पॅड कसे शिवायचे, काय करायचे, ह्याच्याबद्दलच आपण त्यांच्याकडून विचारून घेत होतो. आणि त्याच गोष्टी आपण नाही का इकडे ट्रायबल एरियाज मध्ये राबवू शकतो का? ते सॅनिटरी पॅड तितके नाही का म्हणजे युजफुल आहेत का? म्हणजे तीच फक्त मला माहिती पाहिजे होती. कारण की आपण इकडे सॅनिटरी पॅड आपण स्कूलमध्ये तर सर्व आपण तो कप वगैरे ह्या सर्व गोष्टी आपण त्यांना शो करतो. पण आपण हे ट्रायबल एरियाज मध्ये ज्यावेळेस दाखवतो आपले हे पॅड, ते तितके बेअर करू शकत नाही, कारण की त्यांच्याकडे तितके पैसे नसतातच मुळात.
ह्याच्यात मी माझ्या अनुभवानुसार एक गोष्ट ऍड करीन की त्यांची आर्थिक परिस्थिती, त्यांना असणारी सामाजिक मुभा आणि कौटुंबिक मुभा, या दोन्ही गोष्टी लक्षात घेऊन त्यांच्यासोबत सतत वर्षभर डायलॉग सुरू करणं ही एक गरज आहे. कारण युनिसेफ महाराष्ट्राचं स्वतःचं एक मॅन्डेट आहे MHMचं, ज्याच्या अंतर्गत ते मास्टर ट्रेनर तयार करतात आणि सतत महिला आणि मुली यांच्याशी वेगवेगळं बोलून, कारण दोघांच्या सेटिंग्स वेगळ्या असतात. हे अडोलेसंट असतात आणि महिला ज्या असतात त्या मतलब पोस्ट मॅरेज नंतरचे ज्या शारीरिक बदल किंवा त्यांचं बाळंतपण किंवा इतर गोष्टी, म्हणून हे 2 सेशन्स वेगळे घेतले जातात. तर जर तुम्हाला हे मेनली काय यूज करावं, कसं यूज करावं, का करावं, त्यांच्याकडे असणाऱ्या अवेलेबल असणाऱ्या रिसोर्सेस मध्ये कसं यूज करावं हे सांगायचं असेल तर एक आहे की तुम्ही त्यांचं एक निदान 6 महिन्यांचं किंवा वर्षभराचं प्लॅनिंग करू शकलात, एक 10 किंवा 12 महिलांच्या ग्रुप सोबत, आणि नंतर तुम्ही चेक केलात की काय फरक पडला किंवा त्यांना काही अडचणी येत आहेत आणि कसं हँड होल्डिंग करू शकतो, तर ते बेटर राहील.
मला इफ यू डोंट माइंड विनोदजी, मला असं वाटतं की जसं डॉक्टर सुमन बिजलानी म्हणत होता की वारंवार खर्च जो होतो पॅड्सवर आणि जे त्यांना झेपत नाही, त्याऐवजी मेन्स्ट्रुअल कप बद्दल जे बोलले, तर ते लॉंग टर्म सोल्युशन आहे तो, जिथे खर्च पण होत नाही. तर त्याच्यावरती तुम्ही जास्त लक्ष केंद्रित केलं तर कदाचित त्याचा फायदा होईल. म्हणजे आता मला वाटतं आपण अशी परिस्थिती आली आहे की आपल्याला सोल्युशन बघायचे जे ते दोन्ही याच्यात, हेल्थच्या दृष्टीने आणि खर्चाच्या दृष्टीने पण फारच म्हणजे चांगलं ठरेल सगळ्यांसाठी, असं काहीतरी आपल्याला बघावं लागेल. ते जुनं आता आपलं काय होतं की एक माइंडसेट असतो की आता इतकी वर्ष आपण पॅड्स म्हणत आलोय, पण आता आपण नवीन काहीतरी शिकलो आहे की बाबा इव्हन ह्याचा डिस्पोजल प्रॉब्लेम एवढा मोठा आहे पर्यावरणासाठी, तर मे बी वी शुड स्टार्ट थिंकिंग डिफरंटली. तर ते आपल्याला आता करावं लागेल.
नक्की सर, नक्की.
Great. I think we have, it's already 12:29 and I think it's been amazing the way
It
it's
was a
gone.
good discussion for half an hour.
Yeah, true. So Shilpa, you would like to formally close the session. Thank you so much, Dr. Suman, Dr. Mona, Dr. Neha, Tanya, of course, amazing. Rikita and Khushi ji, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. आप जुड़ पाए इतने लास्ट मिनट पे. आपका भी योगदान बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण था. Thank you so much for that. Hema, Shilpa, all yours.
I would like to invite Hema ma'am for this because she's behind the curtains every time and I want her to
prefer to be there actually.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for such an amazing discussion. It's been years since I might have used a sanitary pad. So it kind of all those earlier memories came up. And I'd like to share one thing though, which I was sharing with Shilpa.
Yeah.
That my mom, this was 55 years ago or more, she used to use tampons. And she used to tell my cousin brother to go and get them from the chemist. And I used to tell her, what are you telling him that? You should have told me, So even we had such thoughts in our mind. But of course, everything has changed now. And so, great discussion. Thank you all so much.